This is a short follow-up video to the earlier ones. Looks like my weight's going to stabilize at around 135 pounds. Though I think what I've been doing is good. I've lost about 5 pounds, but what I'm mainly happy about is that my blood pressure's gone down. You know, I wrote Brent an email a month ago, and he's a doctor, by the way. He hasn't said anything about this to me, and maybe he doesn't want me to worry because I'm obeying Jesus and doing my half-an-hour walk every day, and apparently that's going to help fix the problem. But I apparently have been suffering from high blood pressure. I haven't been diagnosed by a doctor with it, but every time I go to the drugstore, which is once a month, to pick up my allergy medicines, I get on their machine, you know, for those blood pressure machines. This one, it does it on your forearm. Well, for the past 2 months, my blood pressure reading has been like 145 over 95. And I thought, ooh, that's high, man. I said, that's not good. I'm used to having a blood pressure of like 170 over 60, so I think it's the Seroquel. You may say, well, then you should get off Seroquel. No. I have to stay on Seroquel. Seroquel is I had a deadly systemic yeast infection. I mean, deadly. And you might, I went, when I was suffering from it, before I was on Seroquel, I went to all the doctors. Nobody could help me. They would put me on diflucan. They would put me on, all the yeast-killing medications. What would happen is I'd get like temporary relief where I'd feel like I was making some progress with the yeast. It would last about a week, and then 2 weeks later, the yeast infection would be right back. And you say, you sure it was yeast? Yes. Well, actually, they found yeast in a stool culture, but it was yeast. I know it's yeast. I had all the symptoms, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the symptoms, but I know it was yeast. And it's like I couldn't get rid of this. It's like I lived permanently on Monistat. You know, it was like, wow, this is terrible. And Jesus said it was yeast, and he's my doctor. Well, Jesus, and I had it for years. I actually had one doctor tell me, she said, you know what, we've tried. I've done everything that I can to get rid of that yeast, and it seems like no matter what, we can't get rid of it. She says, I'm afraid you're going to have to live with this for the rest of your life. It's just something you're going to have to deal with. So I would never eat any sugars, and because of the yeast, I had all sorts of food allergies, and then Jesus put me on Seroquel, and I started getting better. I started losing my food allergies, and I could start eating more like a normal person. It seems like the only thing, and you know, if the price I got to pay is gain a little bit of weight, it's worth it. It's worth it. I'm going to keep taking that Seroquel, because I was skinny before, but I was sick. And that's why I was underweight before, because before, the yeast was getting all the food before I was. And I was skinny and sick. And I actually had some people come up to me and say, oh, you look anorexic. You need to eat more. And I'd say, I do eat. I eat like a pig. I said, but I can't gain any weight. And then what was happening is I was eating all this food, and the yeast were getting it first. And then I got the leftovers. And that explains why I had all these nutritional deficiencies. Even though I was eating red meat, I was getting iron deficiency symptoms, B vitamin deficiency symptoms, calcium, magnesium deficiency symptoms. So I would buy all these supplements, calcium, magnesium, B12, and take all of that. And when I got on Seroquel, Jesus said, get off of all of it. He says, don't take any of those supplements. He said, they're all feeding your yeast infection. He told me to get off of everything. So I did. And then he put me on Seroquel, and I noticed that I started feeling better. I thought, wow. The only thing that got worse was I got more inflammation in my body, because what the Seroquel was doing was apparently taking all of the yeast toxins out of my cells. So now the yeast toxins, and this yeast toxin is kind of complicated. I'm not going to go into it here, but I got it out of my cells, and the yeast started looking for new homes, because mainly focused down here in my gut, but the infection had actually become systemic and just started spreading all around. You say, well, you should have died. Actually, the only reason I didn't die is because I was taking yeast-killing medication every day, man. I was taking colloidal silver, which was helping to kill it. I was eating raw garlic. I was doing all sorts of stuff. No sugars to feed it. The typical yeast control diet. So basically I was kind of like holding it at bay, but it was gradually getting worse. And I really believe that if Jesus had not put me on Seroquel, that eventually it would have just overcome me, probably. It just overcome me. I had some real close calls on that yeast infection where I felt like I had to go to the hospital. And Vladimir Putin's wife, Larissa, died from the yeast infection. She had the same germ that I have. You say, well, that's not what yeast are like. If there's, like I said, this yeast was bioengineered in Jesuit laboratories, and it doesn't behave like medical textbook yeast. It's actually a yeast bacterium, which explained why when I took antibiotics, I often felt an improvement a little bit in the yeast infection, and then it would come right back. This yeast eats its own poop anyways, so I'm not going to go there right now. The thing is, I got my blood pressure down. I took it today. It was 130/84 or 82. I thought, yes, I'm in the high normal range now. I never really had any symptoms of high blood pressure, but you normally don't. But I told Brent that I must have goofed when I did it, because I thought you're supposed to measure blood pressure here and not there. Well, with this particular machine, it does it on your forearm. So, but I used the same machine. The blood pressure was down. So apparently I did have high blood pressure. Jesus knew it, told me to walk. So I'm going to do that. To try to get the blood pressure even further down, I'm going to increase my exercise. Even though I walk, I don't really think I'm getting into aerobics. So I'm going to do like 20 minutes here first, get myself sweating. Then I'm going to go out and do a half an hour walk and probably do this about 3 or 4 times a week. Also, I find that if I work out on this machine first, for like, if I get on here and work out on this machine first for, say, for about 20 minutes and do it kind of vigorously, I give myself a good warm-up for the walk so that my joints don't hurt as much when I'm out there walking. I get the blood moving. So just want to let you know, blood pressure's down. This is probably the best I'm going to do as far as looks go. I don't think I need to go lower than this as far as my weight. But I have noticed that when my weight goes down, my blood pressure goes down. So I'm going to see if I can get down to 132, 130 with my weight, so I can get the blood pressure into the normal range. It's in the high normal range right now. And I feel healthier since I've started this diet, which is I've increased the raw fruits and vegetables that I eat. They're like 50 to 60% of my daily consumption through the day. I've cut back on all the carbs. I've cut back on the meats. I'm increasing fruits and vegetables, mostly vegetables, although I love the blueberry smoothie I make for breakfast. So I'm going to keep that up. And I eat, I feel better since I've taken out the gluten and I've increased fruits and vegetables. I brought my blood pressure down. I'm also cutting back on salt. And I'm doing better health-wise. Looks-wise, too. So when you, like I said, I haven't been really good about doing my calisthenics. Because I've been working on my writing. When I get into my writing, it's hard for me to think about exercise and food because I don't want to lose my inspiration. And Orson Scott Card says he's got the same problem because he's had several strokes, and he says he's got to remember. He said it's really hard for him to write well when he's doing his exercise, and it's a challenge, but I think it can be done. So. And Jesus said that I am going to finish this book that I'm writing, and that he said he loves it. he's already read it because he knows what it's going to be like. So apparently I can do it. So what I'm going to try to do is balance my time, give myself time to exercise, give myself time to write, time to research for my writing. And, this is not bad. For 56 years old, on Seroquel, I have to be on Seroquel. Don't want to relapse of that yeast infection. It's like I said, it's a killer. It killed Vladimir Putin's wife. I initially thought she died of breast cancer, but Vladimir was in denial about what she died from because he couldn't handle it because I had the same germ that his wife had, and it just devastated him to know that she died from this yeast bacterium that I'm infected with. He was afraid the same thing would happen to me. But Brent, who's a doctor, he said, Vladimir, don't cry. Gail has the yeast infection, but she's very smart with medicine, and we don't think that it's going to win with her. And of course, now that Jesus has me on Seroquel, as long as I stay on the Seroquel, that yeast will not win. I know it. And as long as I obey Jesus, and like whenever he tells me to do something like walk or whatever, just do it and I'll be fine. Jesus will take care of me.